There you go. That was Conor McKeown in Bethpage. And of course, our football show sponsor, Sky Sports, will also be bringing you the Ryder Cup live across the 3 days. Happy to bring in John Huggan, whose first Ryder Cup was 1973 Muirfield, as I understand it, John.
That's right. Yeah, I was actually going through my mind last night, and I counted them up. I've been to 16 Ryder Cups, 15 as a journalist, and one, as you say, as a 13-year-old spectator.
I liked what you said about it as a 13-year-old watching Lee Trevino in 1973. There were about 20 of us there in the driving range, of which my dad and I were two. And with Trevino, it was just a clinic of ball striking. And the thing that struck me the most, there was a little stick in the ground, about 2 feet high, maybe 90, 100 yards away. And he goes, right, folks, watch this. And he gets a wedge out, carves it miles away up in the air. And it comes down within a foot of the stick. And then with the very next ball and the same club, he knifed it along the ground deliberately, and it stopped a foot from the stick. I've never forgotten that.
Yeah, it's a great memory. I mean, it's over 50 years ago now, but yeah, I'll never forget. Trevino was it was an education to watch the great players back then. I mean, the technology was very different. The ball moved around a lot more, certainly sideways. And he was a genius. I mean, it was a genius at work that day.
Yeah, I know you're a very good player as well. Were they just all a lot more handsy back then? Is that like they just manipulated it all a lot more?
Well, I think the instruction has come on leaps and bounds in the last 50 years. I mean, the technology in that sphere of golf has advanced hugely, and I think it was certainly for guys of that era, there would be a lot of trial and error, far more than there is now. So it would take longer to find something, as it were. I mean, the drivers are a perfect example of that. On the equipment side, I mean, it used to be that you had a beautiful persimmon driver that you loved and treasured, and if it broke, it could take months to find another one that would be have the same characteristics. Now they just go to the van and get another one, so they're exactly the same. So things have moved on in many ways.
Yeah, this event has changed a lot over the years. When, for you, given you've been there and seen it and experienced it, when did it start to take a turn in terms of like, you think of the concession and you think of this being a gentlemanly match amongst friends into what it's become today?
Well, it certainly had to change. I mean, that's a given. I mean, Jack Nicklaus was famously credited with suggesting that it changed from GB&I to Europe. That to make it competitive, that had to happen. Although it didn't happen immediately. So people forget the first two matches that Europe were involved in, they got absolutely hammered. It wasn't until '83 when Seve started to take it seriously that things changed. But yeah, I think in terms of the ugliness, for want of a better word, that it changed in '91. I think at Kiowa, the so-called war on the shore. I was living and working in America at that time for Golf Digest magazine, our sister publication, Golf World, the weekly news magazine. They came up with the headline, "The War on the Shore." They were responsible for that. And it certainly it did get pretty ugly that week. I mean, there was all kinds of nonsense going on right to the end. I mean, if you talk to some of the European players, and certainly Bernard Gallagher, the captain, they still wonder about how Hale Irwin's ball got where it did off the 18th tee in that last match. It was headed about 50, 60 yards left of where it finished up. So, as I say, it wasn't pretty. It got a bit out of hand. There's been many efforts, as you can well know, I'm sure, to fix that over the years, but it keeps coming up. I mean, and most of the time, sadly, when it's in America, and most of the time in matches where the Americans are coming from behind, as it were, and having lost the previous match or the previous two matches, it tends to get a bit ugly when that happens.
You were there in '99 at the Country Club, and you walked with Monty, Colin Montgomery's match against Payne Stewart. That you described the abuse Monty took, and he got his fair share in America.
Some of it self-induced, it must be said.
Perhaps, yeah. But you said that was about the worst you ever heard.
Yes, it remains the worst. I mean, Minnesota in whatever year that was, 2016, I think, it came close. It was pretty distasteful, but yeah, the language that was directed at Monty over the first 11, 12 holes was, I mean, it was just disgusting. And famously, his father was, forced to leave the course because he was so upset by it all. And I would understand that. I mean, some of the stuff that went on was, and I can't come close to repeating it in a public forum, but basically the problem was that, from about 10 o'clock in the morning, all these young lads were all hammered.
Yeah.
I mean, the alcohol sales went through the roof, and, it loosened their tongues, and it got to a very, very sad stage, I'm afraid. And Payne Stewart, to his credit, that day did his best to have people thrown out, and did so. But that again was a distraction for him. I mean, that's unfair on Payne Stewart he should be focusing on playing his golf, but he was an unofficial steward that day, I think, which Monty acknowledged. But when it gets to that point, I mean, you do wonder what is the point of this? Is it worth going on? I mean, and if we get to the stage this week, which, the fact that we're even considering it tells you how bad it could get. If they start making, sudden noises on backswings, you might as well pack it in. I mean, that isn't really golf anymore, is it?
No, but it's a hell of a spectacle, and it means people will tune in. So
Yeah,
it does appear to
true.
our more debased instincts, John. You know what I mean?
Is that your tabloid head, Joe, that's kicking in?
Well, listen, I mean, if someone was to message me and say you want to see them Shettinger and Rory swing, and he got into a fight with the crowd, if I wasn't there at that exact moment, would I try and find a TV?
Yeah,
I can't pretend I wouldn't. So there is that dichotomy to the Ryder Cup. It's golf, and it's like a gentlemanly game and all these kind of things, and yet this is almost the time once every 2 years where we just get to watch them go for it, and that's one of the appealing aspects, because in some respects it's such a silly tournament otherwise.
Well, the problem, if you can call it that, is that the crowd is not just a golf crowd for this event. It's a sporting event that transcends just golf.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of people there who don't normally go to golf and don't normally know how to behave on a golf course. And on the other side of that coin, of course, is that, as you kind of touched on there a little bit, is that golf does get up itself a little bit when it comes to behavior and etiquette and all that stuff. I mean, I was at the Walker Cup in America earlier this month, and it's very much the other side of that coin. It's very genteel and very well, let's put it, the crowd there wasn't exactly a broad cross section of society. It was rich, affluent, and white. And I'm not sure we want that for the future of golf either. That's too much the other way. But as you say, it's incredibly watchable. I mean, I will sit in front of the television Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and not move.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I won't be alone in that. And that's probably one of the very few golf events. I mean, I'm old and jaded and cynical and all the rest of it, but it's one of the very few events that can keep me in the chair for that long.
Yes. By the way, with Monty, you don't have to necessarily repeat what was said. Were the barbs in his direction, were they very personalised? Like, were they about his weight or his personal life, or was it just that the language was vulgar but could have been applied to anyone?
Yeah, it was right across the map, really. I mean, certainly his weight came up for was certainly a significant part of the abuse. But he took it as a compliment afterwards. I mean, and it's a fair point that he was the best player on the European team at that time, and he was the highest profile. And of course, he hadn't won the major. We never did win the major. That was another thing that kept being thrown at him. But yeah, mostly it was very personal abuse.
Yeah.
Which I think really crosses the line.
Yeah. I mean, I bring all this up because it does feel like we're primed for something in that vicinity. Donald Trump, we were just talking about it with Conor McKeown, who's our reporter in Bethpage. Trump is going to be there on the first tee, and so it will be charged. It will be, nationalistic, and all the fervour that goes with it. It's a New York crowd, and sometimes you feel like they have to live up to their reputation. And then, the Europeans are divulging bits about their virtual reality headsets where they're listening to abusive material all week in a bid to be hardened against it. There's almost like a self-fulfilling aspect to this. Like, if this crowd don't go crazy, then, I mean, we'll all be kind of saying, well, what was all the build-up for? So I'd be amazed if this isn't really, really close to the line.
Yeah, I've got, sadly, I've got very low expectations. I lived in Connecticut, which isn't too far from New York. I've seen the crowds at other sporting events up close, and I've been at US Opens and a PGA at Bethpage, and it got pretty ugly at those. Never mind that, throw in the nationalistic, um, patriotic stuff, patriotic in the loosest sense of the word. As I say, low expectations. I think it could get really ugly, and it could get to the point where, I hope I'm completely wrong in this, but as I say, if once they start making noises and trying to put players off mid-swing,
Yeah.
that's where it's a nonsense. I mean, it's not even a competition at that point.
No, you're interfering then in the actual play, which is
Yeah.
crossing the line for sure. So, to the golf itself, because bar making sounds during backswings, the fans can only affect so much. What's really intriguing about the 2025 Ryder Cup here is that we don't have the most intimidating USA team we've ever seen on paper. For sure, there's Scheffler and DeChambeau will bring something, and then it's full of like Russell Henleys and Harris English and Ben Griffins. And these are guys, John, that if we sit down and watch a PGA Tour event and they're leading, it's no surprise. I mean, they're good players and they pop up, they have their weeks across a year for sure. But that intimidation factor, it's in those terms, it's as weak a US team as there's been in a long time.
You're right. I mean, if not too many of the European players will be standing on the first tee looking at the guys that you just mentioned and thinking, I can't beat, there's no way I can win this match. I mean, they'll be thinking exactly the opposite. I mean, these guys are very beatable. And this on paper stuff is absolute nonsense when it comes to the Ryder Cup. I mean, it's always been the case that the European team are underdogs on paper, as you say, in terms of the world rankings. But what people forget is that the world rankings are based on stroke play performances, and this is a match play event with two very different animals. And I think the world rankings are, especially now, given the situation in world golf with Liv, they're almost irrelevant. I mean, that I wouldn't pay any attention to the numbers on that in that respect.
No. But yet, even if you just discount the numbers, John Rahm, I don't know where he is in the world right now, but he's John Rahm. And so you go McIlroy, Rahm, Fleetwood, Rose, who's had such a brilliant year and is a great Ryder Cup player, Lowry, who kind of lives for this, Hovland, exceptional in Rome 2 years ago, Bob McIntyre, he's a big occasion player, isn't he? Rasmus Højgaard in this time, Hatton, Sepp Straka, super solid, Matt Fitzpatrick, US Open winner, Ludwig Oberg. It's like, if this was in Europe, you'd make them raging hot favourites. So where it is fascinating is we'll get such a great litmus test here as to the extent to which home advantage has become all-encompassing. Like, if this European team can't beat that USA team, then I'd be very worried about an away win for a long time coming. It may even prompt discussions about how much say a home team has over the course setup.
Well, I think you're right, and I think Rory has hinted at that. I saw a public comment from him that he feels that this is the best opportunity in a long time for a European team to win on foreign soil, and I think he's right in that. But it's also true that you just rattled off the European team there, and it's basically the same. I mean, it's almost exactly the same, given that an identical twin brother is the only replacement for since 2 years ago. But it's not the same team, really. I mean, I went through the numbers, the names and the numbers last week, and they're not the same players as they were 2 years ago. None of them are. Some of them are better, some of them are worse, and some of them are about the same. And it was pretty close, but there was actually, in my mind, there was more of the team are slightly worse now than they were 2 years ago in terms of performance and form and all the rest of it, than they were, as I say, and the team 2 years ago, at least by my, calculations, if you like, it was better than it is now. So there is that in play. I mean, most of the notable ones who are better are Hatton, Fleetwood, Rose, and McIntyre. They're all on a higher level, if you like, than they were 2 years ago. Rory's probably about the same, but Rory kind of is exempt from this in that he's so formidable. He's got a long way to come down to be a weakness, if you like. But some, guys like Lowry hasn't been as good. Hovland certainly hasn't been as good. Oberg has been erratic. Straka's got, personal issues going on. He hasn't played much recently. Huggan is all over the place. The weird thing about him and his brother is that they very rarely play well at the same time.
Mm.
For two people who can get onto each other's phones with facial
Yeah, yeah,
recognition,
yeah.
their form is all over the place. So if you're looking at it that way, I think that then Ram is not the player he was 2 years ago either. How could he be playing on live? And that's important because, as you probably know, the formula for winning the Ryder Cup is really quite simple. It's difficult to execute, but if your top 3, 4 players in your team all play well and win 3.5, 4 points out of 5, you will win. Almost certainly, you're almost impossible to beat if your top players all perform at or close to their level.
Yeah.
So that's really the formula for success.
It's quite hard to judge certain players. Like Ram, I find hard to judge if he's better or worse. Like, he was thereabouts in the back nine of was it the PGA that Scotty Scheffler won?
Yeah, he fell apart at the end.
Quite unlucky, like with a certain putt and a bounce of a ball. If he wins that, we're maybe talking about him in different terms. Lowry is like the fourth best ball striker on tour this year. It's just his putting and like, Ryder Cup, the crowd, you kind of feel he's a different beast. But then an American crowd, again, back to our kind of initial point. One of the kind of mad things from 2 years ago is that the Americans showed up in Rome rusty. A lot of them hadn't played for weeks and weeks and weeks, for this event that they're so into.
Yeah.
It was absolutely astounding. So Keegan Bradley managed to get the bulk of them to the most recent PGA Tour event, the Procure Championship, and they played in the main. Scotty Scheffler won, as he does. Ben Griffin was thereabouts as well. But so Bradley managed to get that out of them. What's your sense of Bradley, the person, the captain? Like, he's something of an unknown quantity as a captain, obviously, but then all first-time captains are. But he was such a left-field choice. Like, it wasn't like it was kind of signposted a long way out, and then there was the complication of would he play or would he not play. Like, he's feisty, Bradley. Like, people will remember his big fight with Miguel Angel Jimenez famously in the caddy, and so he has that in him.
I'm very impressed with his comments. Certainly this week as captain, a lot of it's pre-rehearsed. I mean, they're well coached before they go in. I mean, the questions on the being paid or not being paid. I mean, he had a well-rehearsed answer for that didn't really answer the question, of course, and he's just parroted that ever since. Every time it's come up. But I think it's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, he came at such left field.
Yeah.
I mean, if you'd given me 100 picks, I wouldn't have come up with Keegan Bradley to be captain of the Ryder Cup team. But it might be genius, and it'll be genius if they win, and it'll be analysed to death if they lose.
Yeah. It does feel like he's highly strung. Like, even when he's playing, it's the spitting and the waggles, and there's all that kind of stuff. Like, he's an intense person to Luke Donald's very detached demeanour.
Yes, I mean, there's all that fidgeting, as you say. I mean, he takes him forever to hit a shot. So the pace of play will be this week will be terrible. By the way, it always is. Why they can't play foursomes properly, for example, is a mystery to me. Where they go up on the pair of them on both sides, they go up on the tee at par 4 and metaphorically hold hands and then decide, oh, it's a driver. Oh, right, okay. Instead of one of them walking forward to be at the ball. I mean, at that level of play, they could really help a lot. But the guy who drives and foursomes off a par 4, that he shouldn't really stop walking till he gets to the green.
Yeah,
that would help a lot.
What is your sense of Luke Donald then? Because I can't say in the 2 decades of watching him beyond the obvious, he's a hard kind of guy to get to know.
Yeah, he doesn't give much away, does he? He's always been a bit deep. But I tell you what, he's come into his own as a captain. I mean, for somebody who arrived in such a strange way. I mean, he wasn't picked to be the captain, and if Stenson hadn't pulled out when he did, I'm not sure that Luke Donald ever would have been captain. If Liv hadn't come along, there was a lot of guys, higher up the pecking order than Luke Donald. I mean, you've got Poulter and Westwood and McDowell even, and guys like that who would have been in place, and then once you get past them, you get into Keimer and Garcia. So I'm not sure Luke Donald would ever have been captain had it not been for Liv Golf.
Yeah. You've spoken to lots of players down the years, on, off the record, I'm sure. If you were to generalise the 2 changing rooms, the reason given, I suppose, for maybe punching above their weight is that the Europeans have a kind of a team spirit and a coherence, and they're in it together, and they rise above themselves because of that. And the US, more individualistic. There's the complication for maybe 2 decades. The Tiger wasn't that into it, and it's tough when your kind of marquee guy is ambivalent towards it, and like infighting, and Watson thrown under the bus by Mickelson, and 2 years ago not all playing the event, and we had a formula for a while with Azinger, and then we forgot it, and just kind of acrimony. How true is that when you talk to both sides of the aisle?
Well, I think that where they hit the wall on this stuff is it's cultural. I mean, you touched on it there. I mean, they're not brought up to be team players in America. I mean, as I say, I lived there for 8 years of my life, and even the people I worked with, they weren't particularly good at being team players. They're very individualistic, and that's got strengths, but it has weaknesses as well. And if you want to create a team environment, those are not the people that you go to first, and that's certainly true of the guys who are playing at this level. We're talking about very elite golfers. I mean, these guys have been told how special they are from a very young age, and they start to believe it. And they don't particularly, because of that, bond well with others. They don't play well with others. I mean, I'm sure they didn't share their toys when they were kids either. The basic problem is it's cultural, and that is exactly the opposite of the team environments that I certainly grew up in Scotland, and I'm sure it's exactly the same in Ireland, I have no doubt. And the Continentals have basically joined in. They see enough team golf growing up. I mean, I did a piece a couple of years ago on the importance of the European Amateur Team Championship, which is a 6-man team of amateur golfers from each country in Europe. And almost every single Ryder Cup player you can mention has played in that event and has had experience of being part of a team, playing foursomes, playing singles, and just being part of it all. And I think they enjoy that so much that it stays with them when they become pros.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because on paper, only child, prodigy, Rory McIlroy, focused on winning the Grand Slam of golf, should not be a great team player. No more than the Americans.
Well, but he grew up. I mean, he grew up being part of it. I mean,
team golf. Yeah.
The pleasure that my mind always goes back to the scenes when Shane Lowry won the Irish Open as an amateur.
Yeah.
It was pandemonium, and Rory was part of that. He was in there with his bottle of champagne, and that was the pleasure. The obvious pleasure. It wasn't. There was no act there, and that is typical of the European golfer.
Yeah. So. What are you expecting? Final kind of thoughts. Do you have a strong sense? This one's the great thing is you don't know. Obviously, none of us have a clue what's going to happen. Like Patrick Cantlay could come out and still not wear a hat, or there could be a fight in the car park. Like there's a million variables, which is why it's so compelling. Yeah. But do you have a strong sense of a favourite in your eyes, John?
Well, it's match play golf over 18 holes, which is the most unpredictable format you can get. Certainly at the higher level you go, the less predictable it becomes, because it's just on the day, as people say. But my hope for the event is that it's close. And I hope for our sake, I hope it's close, because can you think of anything better to watch than a Ryder Cup on a Sunday afternoon when it is close? I mean, we haven't been treated to that since Medina.
No. Medina in 12 was 1 point in it, and then Celtic Manor 1 point in it. But actually, if you look through the rest, because when you see it laid out in front of you, it's striking. Aside from Medina and Celtic Manor, this has been an event of beatdowns.
Yeah, and it's not that interesting to watch when it's not close.
No.
I mean, it just isn't. I mean, there's the pleasure you get from whatever side you're rooting for to win, winning or losing, but that's about the extent of it. And it's, as a pure golf fan, I mean, does it really? I think it matters more this time that it's close than who wins.
Well, in Rome that first morning, my heart sank. I was like, it's going to be another one of those,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was all over by certainly the evening of the first day.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no way back. Really. It was an awful long way back, put it that way, for the Americans. And at that level, once the momentum's the thing as well. I mean, that's such a strange thing in team golf. I mean, I've experienced it both as a player and watching on both sides, and my goodness, it's a hard thing to stop. Yeah. If it's running against you, and that's what happened early on in Italy, as you say, and there was no way back.
Yeah, and the inverse in Whistling Straits, it's just yeah. Padraig Harrington was with us last week, and he on the
did he talk a lot? Yeah,
I got a word in. He did raise the interesting point, and I guess he's probably right that like $750 a ticket here. If the US get off to a bad start, the New York fans will be quite happy to abuse their own, which could be another dynamic.
Yeah, that is perfectly possible. I've heard plenty of boos for. I used to go to basketball games in New York, the Nets and the Knicks, and I tell you what, they turn on their own pretty quickly. So that could happen too. I mean, especially this narrative of the money. Do they get paid? I mean, that is not a good thing for the Americans. And I saw Patrick Cantley's interview earlier today, and he handled it perfectly because he actually identified where he's actually going to donate all of the money to charity, and he told exactly where the money was going to go, and that's exactly what every American should do. And then it kind of goes away if they do that.
Yeah, although they now have an awkward 48 hours of, are you donating your money?
Yes, well, there is that, yeah. And it's just a distraction, as you say. I mean, it's all good, and Luke Donald has leapt on this. I mean, did you see his interview?
Yeah,
brilliant. I mean, he used it every possible way he could.
It was such an own goal. So, come here. I think you've definitely sidestepped that. You don't know what's going to happen. Is that?
Well,
you don't have a favourite?
If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would give Europe a slight edge for the reasons that you touched on when we first started to talk here. The European team looks better than the American team. This is not an American team that strikes fear into the hearts of the opposition, which is not always something you can say. And I think I'm with Rory. I think this is the best opportunity Europe's going to have for a while.
Yeah, same.
Or has had for a while.
Well, they've certainly positioned it that way, Europe, and like they've really leaned into the fact that only 37 players in history have won away from home, and it's a shot at history, and so that's their mindset coming in. Yeah. Well, listen, who the hell knows what's going to happen? I guess that's the joy of it. John Huggan, always great to have you on. Appreciate your time, John. Many thanks.
My pleasure, anytime.